Hello students, welcome to Classroom TV. I hope you are doing good, staying safe during COVID times and going through each and every content on Classroom TV. So in the last class, as we have done with the different forms of those, the food components and all from which we get from plants and animal sources and all. Then and next chapter which we are going to learn, did you ever think like how animals are going to have their food? How do the animals eat? And what kind of food they prefer, because as we from earlier classes we keep on learning about the animals like which eat only plants or the plants products, or the animals which we call as grass eating animals which we call as herbivores, and animals which eat the flesh of other animals called as carnivores, and the animals which eat both plants as well as the flesh of other animals are called omnivores. And even we, the human beings, also comes under the category of omnivores, because as you know, the animals, like how they depend on plants and even they depend on the flesh of eating the other animals, eating the flesh of other animals. In the same way, we human beings also, we eat the plant products and even the animals. We eat chicken, the non-veg vegetarian food, fishes, prawns, and many such food items which we eat. So even we comes under a, even we are categorized, or we also comes under a category of omnivores. So as you have known about the different types of those existing animals and on which you have classified the way they try to eat the food. But when we have classified them like these animals, whichever you find, like some are grass eating animals and some are only flesh eating animals, and some there are such animals like when we eat both plants and as well as animals, we have classified them as herbivores, carnivores and omnivores. But still you have been not knowing exactly like when these herbivores and carnivores and these omnivores, how they try to prefer by eating, means in what ways they take the food. We have came to know like these are those such kind of animals which eat only grass, or which eat only flesh, which eat only the plants and only the animals flesh and all. So we classified them, but still how those animals are going to take the food, how they take, means the different ways, because we have variety of animals. So you can find that the variety of animals prefer eating variety of food items. They all cannot take the same, and they are the different modes and the different ways of taking the food. It's not like only the thing like how in our human beings we take the food through mouth, but the animals has the different ways of taking the food. They differ from one another. You won't be going to find the same. The animals, they take the food in the different ways and they have different modes of taking the food. So that's what we are going to learn in our today's class, today's chapter. That's what do animals eat and animals and their food. Means we are trying to find like how, when these animals, when they eat, because already we know like these animals, there are some existing animals and all which we have categorized or which we have grouped up them. We have grouped them as herbivores, carnivores and omnivores and all, but how do they take the food? What are the different ways of taking the food, that we are going to learn in this chapter. So let's start with that, and how do animals eat? Either they eat by mouth, or they are going to lick it, they are going to suck the food, or they are going to take the, because the birds have beaks. So birds have the different modes of taking the food, dogs have different modes of taking the food, cow, buffaloes have different modes of taking food, hens and other such animals also. So all the different varieties and different forms of those animals has different ways of taking the food. It's not the same. They differentiate, they differ from one another, and the variety of food items, because all the existing, all those such living organisms will not take the same variety of food. So they differ. They try to take in different forms and the different means and such ways such they try to take it, but they are not going to find that they are going to take the only one such kind of variety of food. So they've been found with the different ways and different varieties of foods which the animals try to prefer and take the food. So let's see that in a chapter, like how these animals are going to take their food by the different modes and the ways in a chapter. Let's start. So as basically animals are divided into 6 basic groups. First of all, like which include invertebrates, fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds and mammals. So basically, like generally we classify the animals into these 6 basic groups as invertebrates, fishes, as already you know, amphibians like frog, as you know, frog is an amphibian which stays on land and as well as in water. Yes, then reptiles like lizard is an example which you can take here. Yes, so all these are the different forms of those different existing animals which has the different modes and ways of taking the food. Then as birds, as you know, the mammals, you know, so we have classified and categorized them. Then later, so there are variety of animals, wide variety, wide in the sense large variety, number of varieties. So wide variety of animals in the living world, and they too eat wide variety of food items. So as there is an existing living world in the nature, we find many such animals. So you can find that the wide variety of animals living in the world also, so living in the world, and they too eat wide variety of food items. So let's see how animals eat their food. So how do they have their food, that we are going to learn in this chapter. So as you can find the different modes, you know, like the example given, food group, like only plants. So cow, as you know, cow, buffaloes, yes, goats, etc. So along with this, you can say that these are only which eat only plants. Plants, and only, like you can say, the grass eating animals are only plants, or only the plant products which we call as find here. Then if you go for next, only animals like fox you have, then you have vultures you have, even lion and tigers, those also can eat the flesh and all. Yes, so this can just go with that's only animals, in the sense here they eat the flesh. And if you find the such of animals, both in the sense here like plants and as well as animals, plant products also and animals which we find it's human beings. So this is how like we have categorized or grouped those what you say, the grass only plant eating animals, or only flesh eating animals, or only those which both the human beings and plants which we basically find. So let's classify them, and as already you know it. So animals that depend only on plants for food are called herbivores. As we already know it, children, like from earlier classes, example cow, buffalo, goats and all. So those all are called as herbivores here. So you can find here the animals that depend only on plants for their food. The next is that animals that depend on other animals for food are called carnivores. Here's the flesh eating animals which we basically send generally. So here you can find the animals that depend on other animals for food are called carnivores. The next comes the animals that take food from plants and animals are called omnivores. And the animals which take food from plants and animals are called omnivores. So this is already which you know, generally which we are trying to categorize the herbivores, carnivores and omnivores. Now we need to find the different ways and the modes of these, how these animals are going to take their food. And as wide variety of animals existing in the earth, we found in the different parts of our world. So they have different varieties of food which they take and have it here. Let's see. So from finding food to eating it. So from finding food to eating it means, first as you know, like animals and we human beings depend on plants and in the surroundings where we stay. So even animals also always they will keep on searching. They have been keeping search of food. They always are in search of food. They try to search, they wander, they move here and there. So the different forms, because as you've been learning from your earlier classes and you're learning about habitat and all, the surroundings and the living beings where they, the living organisms where they try to take the shelter and where they get the food, air, water available to them in such conditions, in such particular places, in such places, and in most of the uses in such forms you're going to find them. In all of such areas we are going to define those. So here like we are going to find like how the food means from finding food till eating it. So once first they start searching the food, once they get the food, then start eating in the what ways they eat it, that also we should find it here. So as we know, plants and animals are the main sources of food in our surroundings. Plants and animals are the main sources. As you know, plants are autotrophs and all, they prepare the food in the on their own in the presence of sunlight and by using water in the process called photosynthesis, as we should already know it. So here the plants and animals are the main sources of food in our surroundings. Like us, animals also depend on these sources of food. So like how we depend, and even animals also depend on the sources of food as we know it. So every animal has its own style of getting food. Yes, they have different ways of getting food. It's not like each and everyone has going to have its own way. Yes, so that's we are going to find, and they track down, they collect, they grab or hunt, and then they use various tools to finally take food into the mouth. So see how they are going to do. First they are going to find the food. So once they find the food, then how they are going to eat it. There are different ways of eating. They have their own style of getting the food and trying to have it. So some animals, they try to track down, they collect it, they grab it, or they hunt the animals, because they hunt and they try to have the flesh of those animals, like in the case of carnivores and all. So many such animals, they have their own way of getting, the own style of getting the food and trying to have it. That's one. So then comes the first one, tracking down food. So this is most important here. So how they try to track the food, in what ways once they search the food, and then what ways they are trying to get it, in what ways how they are going to have it, that's we are going to find here. So as we know, like most animals feed regularly, but first they must locate food. First they try to know the location, they should know the location of food, means that's the reason you can find the animals like for example lion, tiger, cheetahs and all, they mostly stay in forest, because as they know that their food is available in forest itself, because as you know, like forest consists of large number of variety of trees and plants, and these all herbivores are been found in number, means they are found in large number in forest itself. We find them in forest because as they try because they like eating the grass and the plant products. So for that's the reason you can find that there are many such animals, or which you can find that they keep on they will be keep in search of food, and that's the reason for further thing. First when they try to track the food, or once they be as they are dependent, so first they try to track the food, they try to first trace out that after they find first they try to find the location. First they go with the location, so first they will found to locate the location where their food is available to them, so that every time they can go to that place or they can have it. So that's the first thing which they are going to do, that first do that. Then to do this they use a wide range of senses like smelling, sight, hearing, taste and touch. So these are those kind of sense organs which an animal uses it to track the food or to find it or to trace that location or that place. So these are those senses. So it uses all ranges, by smelling also, by tasting it also, by hearing, by sight, by looking, by touch. As you know, dogs are very much fond of eating the food by smelling it. So by smell itself, when they smell it, then they start eating it. In some ways, the same way some animals by touch, by some animals by taste, some animals by hearing it. So there are different ways of tracking the food, that's one. And some animals rely more on one sense the other, so they depend more on one sense the other, and it can therefore be highly developed in them. So because of this, sense organs are must and should are been useful, or they have been going to use such kind of range of senses. For that's the reason you can find that these animals, they try to rely more on one or the other sense, and they try to get their food. First they try to track the food and get it. So that's the reason that we have seen that animals use some senses more strongly than others to find their food. So they use their sense organs only, smelling, tasting, sight and touch. So these were the most of the things which they use. And for example, dogs use the sense of smell while Vajra use vision. So you can find here now dogs mostly they try to smell and have their food. So you can find the bones and bread pieces and all are mostly been taken as a food, which we see in case of dogs. Mostly dogs, they try to prefer or they go with this kind of info, means mostly they use this the smell on what is it by smelling, that's the one the sense organ which they use in most of the cases, and they try to have the food. So one such example which we come across, like when dogs use the sense of smell while vultures use vision, by sight, they start to trying to have their food, that's one. And bats depend more on hearing while some reptiles on taste. So you can find all the different forms, or you can find the wide range of senses where each and every other animal try to use these senses in one or the other form and trying to have their food, isn't it? So here also in such cases you can find, so you can see that how dogs uses the sense of smell, while vultures uses the vision, the sight, reptiles go with the taste, and bats depends on hearing. So these are the different modes of tracking down the food, isn't it? So in this case of dog you can find like how it starts smelling and trying to have its food. The next comes the different modes, means what is this you are going to learn here? Collecting the food. So how they collect the food now? Now once they try to track down. So the tracking down of food is nothing but by these senses like hearing, touch, smell, vision, the sight and all. By using those they try to track the food. Once they tracked out, now they try to collect it. So finding food is one thing, but collecting or capturing is quite another. Finding food is to the senses, the organs and all, they try to get it and so yes, it's done. But capturing is more quite another thing. It's not such as easy. So many animals have specialized body parts. What are the specialized body parts? Like mouth parts, hands or feet that help them collect their food most efficiently. So you can find the different forms here, like you can see cow, you try to grab, and you can find the frog tongue. Yes, can you see the frog tongue here? Yes, because frog tongue is found to be sticky, and also you can find that the insects like butterfly or any such insects, they get stuck to it, or they get stick to that frog's tongues, which consists of that tissue. Same way you can see again how sucking here, like butterfly sucks the nectar. There's a different way. Then again you can find here the other ways, eagles and the squirrels trying to have with their mouth parts, and then you can find here again, here there the lion tries to kill, they trying to eat flesh. Yes, so you can find the different specialized. So you can find some parts like mouth parts are there, and some are with hands, some are with feet. Now in this case you can see the lion uses its feet and all, it try to growls, and also these are the different forms of what you say like trying to collect the food. So once they first try to track it, once tracking of food is done and it's followed by collecting the food in one or the other form, that is also one of the other important tasks one such animal need to do that. So that once it starts searching the food for them and they go for its taste and all, before that they try to first track down, and once they track the food then they try to collect the food in one or the other forms to their mouth parts, by their hands, by their feet, by the tongue and by sucking. So there are different modes and forms of that the food whichever they try to first track, and they try to collect that food and they try to have it. So this is how the animals start having their food. That's the reason we say like how does animals do eat. That's what which we are trying to find, like how does animals start eating it or trying to have their food. Yes, so this is the different forms. So cow and all you can see. Then you will see that same part may be used in different ways by different animals also. So some body parts or some mouth parts have been found similar, or they have been found same in animals. In some animals, you can find that the same part may be used in different ways by different animals. For example, tongue may be used by dog in different manner as compared to frog. Yes. So you know, like same way the dog here try to uses its by smelling, and here frog uses its tongue to grab the food. So in the way you can find the parts are there, the parts can may be same, but the different ways the different animals are going to have the food which differ from one another, that's differently which you are going to see in such cases. Yes. The next comes the dog licks with it while frog captures and swallows food with it. Yes, can you see now? Dog licks with it, or whereas frog try to captures and swallows it directly. So also different parts may be used to take in the same type of food, like hens use their beaks to pick insects while frogs use their tongues for the same purpose. Yes, are you getting it, children? Like here you can find it very clearly, like different parts are used to have the same type of food, like hens use their beaks to pick insects, they use with the beaks, and frogs use their tongue for the same purpose. So, even frogs also eat insects, hens also eat insects, but hens use their beak to capture and have those, and frogs will try to have their tongue, they capture and swallow it. So, this is the way the different modes, the different forms of that which you find mostly in all of such cases where they go with the different purpose, that is the same purpose. They are trying to have food, but you can find the different modes of its having it that differs from one another, that which you are seeing here. Yes. The next comes, you can say the different, you can find the same, the ways, the different the groups you can see. So, the same part in similar group of animals may be used in ways that can be largely different. So, you can see beaks of different birds. So, these are all called, now you can find the beaks of different birds here. Yes, you can find the beaks of different birds which are shown here. You can find the woodpecker, the pigeon. Can you see this? A large beak compared to all. You can see it's a larger one. Yes, then you can see an eagle, sparrow, duck, hen. Yes, you can find hen also, the beak. So, you can find the beaks of different birds. So, crow also you can find, it's a crow here, pigeon here. So, these are the different birds. So, the main criteria is here the same part in similar group, means everyone has beak only, everyone go with the mode of with this beak itself, means they uses the beak only for taking the food, but the similar group of animals may be used in the ways that they are largely different, means the way they try to take the food may differ from one another, but the purpose is found to be the same. They use these different beaks whichever you find in different birds, sparrow, duck, hen, pigeon, woodpecker, crow, so many such birds, they all try to have their food by using their beaks. Yes, so this is one kind of purpose which you can get. They have the food along with that. So, for the beaks of different birds are used to eat different types of foods here, different types of foods for the purpose of eating food, which goes with the different types of beaks which have been found and shown here. Is it children? So, that is also one of the interesting fact which you will be knowing it, like how this animals start eating their food by the different modes of which they are trying to have it here. Yes. The next comes, so woodpeckers have long and strong beak, isn't it? So, we have seen in the picture that woodpeckers have long and strong beak, very large and strong beak. By using this beak, they remove layers of bark and eat ants and pests which lie under the bark also, in the bark also, because as you know, like barks of trees are found to be very strong. So, because of that reason, you can find woodpeckers, they have long and strong beak, which can help them. By using this beak only, they try to remove the layers of the bark and they eat ants and pests which lie under the bark of trees. So, you can find that much. And crane also, a crane has a long beak to catch fish in water. Yes, have you find any time children like crane? Yes, it has very long beak to catch fish in water and try to have it. And have you ever seen vultures? Then even vultures are also will have a strong hook beaks to tear the flesh of animals. They tear the flesh of animals and they try to have it. Yes, so vultures also will have very strong hooked beaks. So, you can find the different beak, the birds beaks, like they are used for different purposes to have the food. Like in one such case, you can see like woodpeckers have long and strong beaks. Then you can find the cranes also have long beaks to catch the fish, and even they have a strong hook beaks which vultures can have it. Then parrot, as you know, parrot which eats fruits and cracked nuts has a hooked beak. Okay, hooked. Have you seen a parrot? You know very much. Very out of all the birds, I think many of you are very fond of parrot. And many will have such favorite pets also in their homes. So, parrot has a hooked beak in the shape of hook. So, why it will have hooked like things like it will, because it usually eat fruits and have cracked nuts. While the crow does not have it, isn't it? Crow does not have hooked nut, whereas parrot has that. So, you can differentiate again the forms of these beaks which can differentiate the different modes of which they try to take the food and have it, and which you are eating here. Not only the beak, there are other parts as well that are different to suit the type of food eaten by a bird. Yes, so here not only just only the beak, but there are some other parts also which you are going to find it differently to suit the type of food which they are being going to eat. Birds, because you can find the, because the type of requirement or the availability of food which makes them to have such kind of food, and that it totally depends on the food, the availability, the way which they are going to have in such cases, which plays an important role in all of such. So you can find that this is going to the type of food which they are going to eat by bird will differ from one another, and the type of different beaks which you are going to find have been used here. Yes. And then comes how does a frog get its food then? So already as we have find from our previous slides, like a frog uses its tongue to have its food. Let's see. It's very interesting to watch a frog getting its food. Gets its food. A frog throws out its sticky tongue towards an insect. Okay, it will try to lag its tongue, extend its tongue, try to remove it. That an insect gets stuck on the frog's tongue, and then the frog swallows it immediately. Yes, so this is the way you can find like how frog have its food. Frogs try to get its food by frog throw out its sticky tongue towards an insect, then trying to that insect gets stuck on the frog's tongue, and then the frog swallows the food. That's one. And we know that the many animals like cow depend on plants for food. Yes, as we know, cow depends on plants only. It's a herbivores. It always eat only grass. So they are herbivores, as we know. So animals like cow, goat, buffalo, sheep, giraffe, camel, elephant, deer, etc. eat different parts of plants. They eat different parts of plants. So as we already know that they eat different parts of plants, and that's the reason you can find that mostly deers and elephants and all, giraffe and all, mostly they are found in forest itself, because as forest has been full of the variety of plants and trees, and that's the reason you can find like when there is a lots of availability of those herbivores found in such area, and automatically you can find even carnivores also found most in such areas. That's the reason lion, tigers and all which stay in jungles as we know it, isn't it? So in all of such cases, so when they try to eat the different parts of plants, and even they eat the different parts, like what are those different parts of plants which we can find or they expect out of eating? It's like green or dry grass, leaves and branches. So they try to go with this and of this plant products which you can find. It can be green or dry grass, leaves, branches of that. Elephants also mostly can find they eat branches of plants itself directly, and some only with the dry leaves and some only with the grass. So this all those are the plant products which we find mostly being eaten by different animals which we call as herbivores here. Yes. The next comes the animals like cow, buffalo, camel, etc. chew food very quickly. They chew the food very quickly and then they swallow and try to store in a part in their stomach. Already this as you will be knowing it. So then first they try it, when they get the food, what they do is directly they chew the food very quickly. They just swallow it. Actually they won't go with that much of chewing and all. They just try to swallow the food. They directly first they try to take the food directly. They chew it. Then later then they store in the part of stomach, and then as you know after some time they take the food material back which they were swallowed. Once they take back from the stomach and to the mouth, and then they start chewing it again. They again chew it that. So this process which mostly you find which gets continued for many such consecutive times. So here you can find that after some time they take the food material back, again they get back it from the stomach to the mouth and chew it again, and this process is called rumination. We call that process as rumination. You will be learning about this in coming higher classes of children, and that's the reason you can say that animals like cow, buffalo and all are called as ruminants also. We call them as ruminants because what they do first, when they get the food, first they try to directly swallow the food instead of chewing it, and then they get back the food again from the stomach and they start chewing it slowly, and that process which you call rumination, and that's the reason cow, buffalo, camel etc. animals are called as ruminants also. That's one. And generally elephants eat leaves, branches of plants, fruits, etc. As I said just now. Like elephants mostly they try to eat the branches of plants and fruits etc. and which are available in the forest. So mostly we find this kind of this availability of this kind of food, plants, leaf, branches and all, mostly which we find most available in forest itself. Yes. The next comes the dogs eat food by using their sharp teeth and tongue, and even wild animals like lion, fox, wolf, tiger and others also have sharp teeth. Yes, can you see the sharp teeth? The edges you can find they have very sharp teeth. That's the tiger. Even same thing you can see there are two sharp jaws. Can you see it? You can very much you can differentiate it. So these two jaws, so you can find even this kind of jaws mostly which are available in case of dogs also. Even dogs also eat the same. They also eat the food the same, but this is the sharp teeth which you can find in tongue, and even lion, fox, wolf, tigers also have the same sharp teeth, isn't it? You can see even an wolf also here. Then animals that hunt have strong legs to run. Even they have very strong reins because they run behind them to run, and sharp claws to catch and sharp teeth to tear flesh. So you can find the different parts. You can see the first one is like they have strong legs to run. Their legs should be very strong, and that's one. And they have sharp claws to catch and sharp teeth also to tear the flesh. So we can see sharp teeth in cat or dog's mouth also, the same which you can expect in case of dog and cats also. They tear the flesh of animals by using this sharp teeth only. So even they tear the flesh of animals by using this sharp teeth which you can find in of such cases. Yes. Then getting food without hunting. So there are some other animals also which get their food without hunting also. Yes, so till now like we find like that there are such animals and all which are always in search of food. They try to hunt or they kill the animals in search of food and try to have it, and you will one or the other form of modes of such which you are going to find here. So that all different parts also which can make this happen in such cases also. So here such are those animals also which you can find they get the food without hunting. Let's see. Some animals get their food by hunting and some others do not hunt only. For example, you can see a duck. Can you see a duck? Example for that means those animals like which get the food without hunting, you can classify, you can give an example of a duck here. So duck get its food without hunting. You can find its. So ducks also have teeth, but they are not like the teeth of cow or lion. They too have teeth. But you can see the teeth, how it is. Yes, the teeth of duck. They are not useful in grinding food. Because whereas in the case of the cow and buffaloes and all, what they do, they directly first strike the food. They just swallow it. Again, they get the food to their mouth and they just start chewing it. That's which we say it's grinding. But here in this case, ducks also have that, but they won't go for such kind of thing like how does a cow or lion does. Where you can find they are not useful in grinding food. They won't grind or they keep on chewing the food. They just try to take the big and they have it. They act as filters to get food from water. But this teeth, whichever you find, which you can find, they act as filters to get food from water, because as generally you know that the duck stays in water mostly. So, it try to have the algae, the contaminated, the decaying organic matter or all such cases which you can find out of this here. So, those all parts also which you can mostly find, which you can keep on been seeing in such aliases and all. And similarly, fish too have teeth which are used for some purpose as that of ducks. Yes, even fish too have teeth, but it's not used like in case of like again getting back the food or grinding, or not, it's not be done. but even they too have teeth, but they have been using for the same purpose as that of ducks. So, how the ducks use it by using it means how they try to use it as those which are acting as a filter to get their food in such cases from water, to get the food from water. In such cases only even you can find that even fish also trying to have the food in such cases and using for such purpose, which you can see in case of ducks also, which is in the case of ducks also. So, here each and every part which you find, it gets associated with one or the other forms of such. In the same way, like even if you go for the tigers, leopards, the deers and other parts which you can find, even they too have the organized way of those type of food which they are trying to take from one or the other such ways which you are going to know, because all of such properties or all of such uses may not better be using in our one or the other forms of such uses, because here we have been finding with the uses, the finding, and we are going with the modes of using the food in such cases, because all of such cases in the mode, the food which is being consumed and taken by these animals may be different from one another. And that's the reason you can find like these lions and tigers also, we can find they generally stay in the food, and even they try to have the food which been found mostly in such cases of jungles and all, because you can say like the animals which have been trying, which depend on the other animals to have the food, we say that they have been searching of food and they try to stay in jungles. So, that is the reason we call it as prey, P-R-E-E. So, they try to depend, means the prey is nothing but here it is the food, means the animals depend on other, means animals depends on others, other flesh, other animals flesh here, that is which we call here, that other animals flesh which we call as prey here. And here this prey, so means as we know like deers and buffaloes, cows and all, mostly in such cases they always been found maybe eating these grass eating animals and all. So, in turn you can find that these the grass eating animals and all which you see, mostly the cow and like deers and all, mostly they have been searching and they have been trying to move away from the predators. So, here those predators are nothing but like where they try to, predators are those like where these will consider themselves as like those predators which are been trying to come on to them, they are trying to capture them, attack and they are trying to have the food on one or the other forms of that which they are trying to have the food. So, in all of these sessions which we find the one or the same the meaning which you could find from out of this all would give us that important forms of those, the herbivores and the carnivores which you find in such all of cases. So, based on this applications only we are trying to find like how this should be helping them. So, you can find like vultures and all, the crane, the crows, the different forms of the bees and the birds which they have going to find in such cases. So, here we will be basically learning the ways and the different modes of the food which they get it. So, first thing is like we have learned that they have the how the animals they try to first track down the food. Once they track the food, then they try to collect it the food. So, there is a lot of difference which you find between collecting the food and trying to tracking the food and trying to grab it, because the different modes and you find the different modes of the mouth parts and the different ways how they try to collect the food and how they try to trade the flesh of animals and they try to have it. So, all in different forms which we have found it. And even there is another interesting fact which we will be learning in the next class, that is food chain, because food chain is most important here, because you will be learning that this food chain is in turn related to one another. Means suppose as we know like animals depends on grass eating animals depends on the grass, that is plants. So, if there is no existence of plants, then there would be no any insects such or no such any grass eating animals. If there is no any grass eating animals, you cannot find that this been eaten by other. So, you can find in turn that one animal is been eaten by other, like frogs are insects are eaten by frog and frog is been eaten by snakes and snakes are eaten by eagles. So, this is one kind of a chain where interconnected, where each and every animal are interdependent, they are linked to one another. So, they are interdependent, they always keep on in the search of food. So that one such important aspect which we are going to learn, like it's which we call as food chain, because chain plays a very important role in which of the following ways the food, how it gets scrapped and how it's been dependent. Because that conservation, because that's the supply of food, means that chain which continues in one or the other or the form of this, which gives the important uses of such process which we are going to learn. So, in the concept we have been learning, and we are trying to differentiate between the concept, the foods, the variety of the food items, the animals which try to get the food from each or the other forms of which the herbivores, the carnivores and the omnivores and the plants which will be eating them, which eat both as well as the plants and animals in all of such cases which we are learning it. So, I hope children you have understood today's class, like we have done with the first part of chapter, and we have learned like how do animals eat the food, how to get their food first, after getting the food then how they start eating the food in the different modes and the forms by which they try to have their food. That's most importantly which we have discussed. In our next class we are going to learn with the next part of the chapter, like which we are going to learn about food chain and some of those summary. We are going to summarize the chapter, and we are going to have some textual questions which have been given in the back of your textbook also. So till that, keep watching our Classroom TV. I hope you have understood it. So once again, go through the content by visiting to our website classroomtv.in for latest videos, material, each and every content you are going to get when you are logging to our website. And keep watching and enjoy Classroom TV. We will meet in our next class with the next last part of our chapter.